Welcome to Sisterpreneurs Talk, a podcast where real entrepreneurs share their raw, unfiltered journeys exactly as they are. My name is Jennifer.
And my name is Bianca, and tonight we have the pleasure to have here with us Alisée de Tonnac, co-founder and co-CEO of Seedstars, impacting people's life in emerging markets. Hi, Alisée.
Hi, well, really special to be here tonight with all of you and with you too.
Thanks for us too.
So welcome, Alisée. Thanks again. I guess we start at the beginning. This is how it works in general. So you started your career, I believe, in L'Oréal, if that's correct. And for me, because I don't know your story, and I always wonder, how does this moment of people leaving corporate jobs and becoming entrepreneurs happen? So what was your life in that point, and how did the decision that you're going to found Seedstars happen?
So I think I was, with like many stories, I thought the way to go forward was to have that perfect CV. And perfect CV at that time meant you had to have really good grades, you had to be in the right curricular activities. I was assistant professor with this one, I was doing like president of the committee for students. And I was just trying to build up this CV. At the time, you were doing consulting or going in big corporates. And so further to doing my master's in Italy, I wanted to join L'Oréal. And so then you hope you get the nice title, that you're part of the trajectory of those that are in the kind of top talents. And then there are many anecdotes that led me to leave. I didn't have a long corporate life. I spent only 2 years in L'Oréal. But I think two moments really surprised me is when the CEO came to visit our office. We were a couple of talents that got to have lunch, and he asked us, okay, who here in this room can commit to another 10 years to L'Oréal? And I was the only one who didn't raise my hand, and I remember HR called me after that and said that wasn't a good move. And I was so shocked because I thought in the contrary, it showed like, okay, I don't know, like this is a two-words relationship. Let's see how it evolves. So I was really shocked at how much they had configured the way we were supposed to operate in the corporate. And then the second moment was Nike was launching this new ad where they had paid this influencer a certain budget. And basically with that budget, he did a world tour and put together a really cool video for a smartwatch and put quotes of these extremely powerful and mainly women. And I come across a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that says, "Do one thing every day that scares you." And it really shocked me because I was like, I do nothing that scares me. And so I put it on my desk, and quickly the first fear was to quit the job. So that was the first scary thing that I did. So that's how I kind of started, like really thinking that I needed to build the perfect CV. And then once I was in this kind of what I thought was the right status and reasons why I was supposed to choose a career, I didn't care about the product in the end. I didn't care about where I was heading or knowing that I could do another 20 years in the company. I was missing out on, okay, actually, I want to be with very like-minded people, but that can lift me up, that inspire me, and I want to do something where I do feel is meaningful. And I didn't see that in selling cosmetics. So I was very, very lucky because now we invest in hundreds of entrepreneurs and we've met thousands around the world. I was very lucky to meet the right co-founders from my first attempt because it takes a while, and I know a lot of people have really tough experiences with that. But so I've been with them for more than a decade, and we've kind of symbolically signed for another 10 years together, because I could raise my hand more easily. And that kind of kickstarted the experience and never looked back.
That's amazing. So how did you meet them? And did you first meet your co-founders and then had the idea, or was there first idea and then you met the co-founders? What's this story about?
Yeah, so the idea really is nothing in the whole equation of an entrepreneurial experience, but it was very anecdotal. I came across one of my co-founders, Pierre-Alain, and he, being a serial entrepreneur himself, was like, before I'm 30, I'll do a world tour with entrepreneurs. And at this time, I'm still in L'Oréal. I'm like, yeah, we all say that. We're all going to say we're going to do a world tour, da-da-da-da-da. Never happens. And he looked at me as if I was an alien. And I was looking at him as, where are you coming from? So there's this like mismatch of two worlds where for him, every choice was driven by action. There was never like, whereas I was kind of coming already with this corporate mindset, if I may say so, kind of old-fashioned of you kind of couldn't decide how your day was going to operate. You couldn't define what the value you were going to bring within the company. It was very much kind of siloed and already prefabricated. So I, at some point, okay, I need to do something scary today. Can I join the world tour? And from there, we built Seedstars World, which was our first marketing effort to build a community, because absolutely, I'm completely aligned with Giga's mission that a community drives real change. And so from there, we, with the competition, we reunited entrepreneurs, and then maybe I can share more about Seedstars. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect moment, actually. Maybe you can tell us what Seedstars do.
Yes, so Seedstars today, we have two main activities. On one side, we invest in entrepreneurs. Historically, we've been investing as a VC fund. First it was out of our balance sheet, then it was friends and family money that we were investing, and then it became a structured, closed-ended venture capital fund. So we take very early risk, taking equity in early stage company, but our thesis is that we only invest in emerging markets. So our last investments were in Nigeria, Colombia, Philippines, okay? So that's kind of the thesis, which is a large one geographically, but we really believe there is so much untapped opportunity, and what were the ways that we could reallocate capital to these meaningful solutions on the ground. From there, we realized the VC space targets a very specific type of entrepreneur, and I think you all are very different types of entrepreneur, and it's a small percentage of entrepreneurs that actually access or believe that the right route of growth is through a venture-backed journey. And so we were meeting all these unbelievable entrepreneurs, but we didn't have the financial instruments to support them. So that's why in the more recent years, we're now doing a lot of debt. Concessional loans means that we do a more impact-driven debt. And then, of course, historically, we've always supported donations because you need to kickstart some ideas, and you need to, more importantly, train entrepreneurs, because it's usually not on the first bet that they succeed. So someone needs to take that risk. And so on that side, we have different investment structures with different investors. So in the VC fund, we have investors like the World Bank or family offices. Or in the debt fund, it's going to be a foundation, or the donations, it can be development banks like the Swiss Development Bank or the German Development Bank. So different profiles on investors across the different asset classes. And then on the other side, so we have this very difficult thing, and I think we over-diversified at some point, but it's very difficult to go in these markets and say, oh, I'll just wait for someone to fix that and I'll come back 10 years later to invest. Most of the markets we were going in, I think in Bolivia, we were the first ever tech startup investments that we were doing. So there were so many gaps to fill to build a stronger ecosystem, which would feed a stronger pipeline of quality investment opportunities that could have social change. So quickly we started having the competition, then incubation centers, acceleration programs. We realized in Abidjan there wasn't a coding school for women, so we built it. So we have still this very entrepreneurial DNA that if it's not there, let's do it. And the joke at Seedstars is that we keep going upstream, and one point we'll be launching nurseries with Barbara because it starts really at early education if you want to profoundly change the opportunities. And it's actually a global movement needed, not just in these markets. But so on one side, really the educational community side, and on the other side, the investments.
Why did you decide to focus on entrepreneurship specifically? Why do you think entrepreneurship is able to fill certain gaps, and which gaps are the most urgent or important?
So to be honest, I didn't think much at the time where we launched Seedstars. I think it was, I don't know if I can call myself a founder. In the sense, I followed my co-founders, which were way more experienced than me, because they had already launched their first business, since they were in university. And I was following them. They really had that vision. They had that first strategic instinct that I was learning. They were my best mentors. I was just learning. So the idea came more from them, because from their already 5-8 years experience building companies, the most fulfilling element was that they could pay other people and other people could feed their families. It was the most gratifying thing. I didn't know about it. I hadn't built any job yet. But that was something that still today at Seedstars is by far the most gratifying element, is knowing that you're building these jobs. And then now the efforts we're trying to put is specifically, what does dignified job mean? And how do you sustain a job, which is its whole conversation. But fundamentally, you need to build jobs. Here we talk about entrepreneurship. It's very much a luxury. In most countries around the world, and even still in Switzerland, it's by necessity. It's a very different start of the equation. So for us, entrepreneurship was an unbelievable driver to have this socio-economic impact on the ground. And it's true, selfishly, it felt like the work we were doing was more meaningful in those markets than being in Switzerland and launching, at that time, they were launching like a wine business, wine subscription business, or a carpool together. Over there, I mean, it's because it's out of necessity and the need to build the foundations of the economy they want for the future. The companies were coming with these unbelievable solutions, and we wanted to be part of these stories.
I think we're covering, let's say, the sweetest part. I also think emerging markets, I mean, I totally agree with you that you can have this big impact, but at the same time, there are big challenges there in terms of infrastructure, of the reality, of talent. What do you think are, or at least for you in your entrepreneurial journey, was the biggest challenge in terms of geographical aspects? We always lived the problems firsthand, because from day one, we were a company remote that was hiring everywhere. So we started in Switzerland, but I think we never passed 10 people in Switzerland. So today we were much bigger when we had the events and incubation, so around 100. I think we're representing 40 geographies. So we already had the complexity of diversity, that if you don't really figure out inclusion, you don't get the best of it. And so a lot of the challenges we had in trying to invest effectively or provide the right programs in these markets was understanding the local components of these markets, really understanding the gaps, really understanding the cultural elements, which we do not have. As much as we want to try and be there, and I moved to Africa for a while, I don't have the same understanding as my talents that live in Nigeria or Kenya or wherever. So it was figuring out how were we communicating and collaborating in a way that this inclusion of information and content and creation was done in a way that we could effectively customize to those markets. But that's where we've done our biggest error of not understanding how to go in. But we never wanted to not go to a market by fear of not understanding the other. Because every time, Seedstars until COVID, we were organizing the largest startup competition in emerging markets. And we saw firsthand, when you bring in 100 entrepreneurs from 100 countries, no matter how different they are culturally, religiously, societally, whatever makes them so different, in a split second, you get them on the same vibe, same language, same reason to why they're building these companies and trying to move forward. So we always wanted to be entrepreneur first. And the Swiss flag helped a lot. The neutrality allowed us to go everywhere. We never allowed ourselves to not go someplace.
So are you directly connected with these entrepreneurs? Meaning, for example, yourself, Alisée, do you know these entrepreneurs? Are you in touch with them? And maybe even if you have a cool story with us, which you can share about an entrepreneur who started with your academy and today it's a existing business. I'm really interested on the hands-on experience and how lovely it is, or how actually difficult it can get for a European person working in this environment, as you're saying.
So we have a lot, right now we have 10 different programs in 10 different countries. So it's very difficult to be hands-on and know every entrepreneur that we're working with. That would be I don't know if AI is going to solve that for us, but that would be the absolute best, is do we really have a long-lasting interactive community that feeds itself over time and years? Of course, the ones where we've invested more or have gone through our more longer-term programs, the relationship is stronger than others. And recently I was in Lagos to start identifying with whom we would work locally to operate the program. And it's great because we also have a funding available, so we will be supporting them with loans. And it was a woman that had participated in another program we had done with this German Development Bank 2 years prior. And she had effectively been able, with our grant money, launch her first usine, factory. Because she was trying to teach women in northern state Nigeria how to not only do plantations for coffee, but reuse parts of the skin, etc., or think about it in cosmetic terms, like the type of soaps you could use, so that they could kind of diversify their revenues, because the fragility of the economy would not give them the same robustness. And that allowed her to do the factory, which now she's building an academy, and now she's probably the biggest candidate for one of our more larger loans. That, for me, beautiful story. Like, it's kind of and there's still everything to be done with her in terms of her journey. But especially coming from Europe, I need those field visits, because in the end, I find myself very much in front of an Excel and Zooms, and it's you kind of lose base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a moment where you felt like this journey of a certain entrepreneur, I don't know what to do anymore, I don't connect, I don't get it, like we're so different culturally, I cannot do this anymore, I want to, but it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because it sounds like a beautiful, but was there a moment where the cultural differences were so big that you were kind of like...
No, I think that's never been the issue. I think I'm very careful to be in any investment committee, because I do want to invest in everyone. So I'm clearly not on some investment committees for that reason.
And just one more question because you're describing at the beginning it started as a world tour, so I guess you started with certain business model in mind, but the way you're describing it today is much bigger and broader than you might have thought in the beginning. So did your business model evolve and changed a lot as you grew?
Absolutely. So the vision was a gut feeling the first years between founders. We just believed in entrepreneurs and we wanted to support them. That was kind of it. And then when you start building a team in remote, you're like, oh, culture does make sense, because it's kind of, how do you systemize what we feel, what are our values, the way we approach doing business. And we had to think about that very quickly, because no one was in the same room. So we put down our values and our mission statement, and I think the mission statement hasn't changed. What has changed is, how do we go about kind of succeeding in this mission? And so we've tried everything. We've tried a lot, and we're still failing miserably on so many experiments. But we thought we needed to double down on community. We started doing seed spaces, so co-working, co-living. And we were also operating rooms. And we had, pre-COVID, 15 co-working spaces around the world. It didn't survive COVID. And to be honest, I don't think it didn't survive the kind of core strengths that we had. And so that we kind of sold off, and I think we still have 2 in Lima, but that's it. We've tried going into the believing that the ones that would fuel the impact work, it would be corporates, but we kind of were doomed in the CSR conversations with corporates on the ground, so we moved away from that. We saw that there was development aid, a huge new world for us, and we had to learn the jargon, we had to learn the politics, which is exhausting, but you have to. And so understanding, how do you work with these public-private type partnerships? And then we figured out that didn't work at scale, because it's a very difficult model to scale a business on grant agreements. It's its whole world in itself. But so we've constantly been, but again, that's where Pierre-Alain, one of my co-founders, was very good at, is that he, coming from an M&A background, he had really strong frameworks in mind. And so we were always using these frameworks, kind of identifying, okay, where are we going to put 80% of our efforts, but never, never underestimate the 20%. And the 20% experiments we've been building over time were, for example, the fund. The fund 6 years ago was paying nothing, no one, very difficult. Fundraising cycles are huge. I mean, it took us 3 years to close our first early stage fund. But today it now allowed us to have 5 new mandates, and then we're doing debt. And so now that has become something much more important in the whole portfolio of Seedstars Group. So it's that constant reflection, okay, what are our next growth stages? Because we're still ultimately trying to build product market fit for it to scale. And it's very difficult with an impact thesis.
So, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all of this background stories, because often we don't see from the outside.
No.
I wanted to ask you about the culture, because you mentioned you have this mission statement and you mentioned you have those values. So how do you think it's important, the culture for your company, and what's your favorite values?
So I don't know why we were very comfortable from the get-go. I think because also we were a small team. We never pretended that values was this happy place where everyone had to agree with them. The idea was they had to be specific enough that people would hate it. Because I didn't want to attract anyone and everyone. I wanted to attract a very specific type of talent that would fit our culture, which is quite unique. So we were very comfortable to do that from the first. And as a social, so at the time we were called social enterprise, now we're like impact organization. I guess now we're for-profit, it changes all the time. But anyways, at that time, being a social enterprise, one of our values was follow the money. It was super aggressive, but we kept attracting people that didn't understand the value of money, which was still the fuel of so many enterprises and businesses. So we wanted you to be comfortable with it. We wanted you to understand what were the kind of the economics behind the services and the products we were building. So that, for example, was something that I remember a lot of people didn't understand. We had another one, which was in experiments we trust, which is in today's world, of course, everyone wants to be experiment-oriented, collect the data, interpret the data. But at the time, it was something where even ourselves, we were still very much uncomfortable with. But it was an aspirational value that we wanted to get to, because we knew that we, again, in this remote context, across different geographies, thematics, we're hyper-diversified in the end. We needed to manage by measuring. It was kind of the only way about. So that was another one I like, which for me, it's still an effort. It's not natural compared to other talents.
Which one? This last
Experiments, one?
Yeah. Which one pictures you?
Get shit done. That's another. That's another value. But as we grew, the shit was a problem. So,
like from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. But I think in the end, further to conversations with all parties, we kept it, or we put stars or something. Yeah.
And now, if we come back to, you were saying, okay, you were facing a lot of setbacks and some failures. Which one do you think was, at least for you, the biggest failure from professional or personal perspective? Because it can be both. And what did you do? How did you react?
I mean, professionally, it's difficult to explain it if you haven't lived it, but we've touched bankruptcy too many times for it to be ever funny. But when it's easy to say now because you get back up and we found ways, but when you're in it, it's really, really tough. A lot of sleepless nights. Personally, still, biggest failure is losing a talent you actually want. That's really tough. It's always human related in the end, funnily enough. It's a client really, really not happy with your work. That for me is still one of the biggest failures.
I can't even imagine that.
You knowing me. Yeah. So I think, losing talents that you didn't want to lose, and and fundamentally not having understood, because the relationship with the founders, with the team, with your clients, maybe the entrepreneurs or the investors, it's really a long-term partnership. It's a tough sell. We're doing something really risky in difficult contexts where not everyone has a lot of information, but I guess it's the case in many businesses. But so when you lose that trust, it's a big failure for me.
You said that you guys were many times close to bankruptcy. Sorry, that really caught my attention because I just hear these success stories, and I'm really happy that you're saying this loud. What happens in a life of a person when this moment comes and you have children home and you're kind of like, what do I do? Do I freak out? Do I shoot myself? Do I go? Like, what do you do? How does it feel like in person's life?
So I have an immense respect for solo founders because I'm not one. I don't know how you manage this alone. It's like when I became a mom and then I met like single mom and dad. I'm like, whoa, this is just another level of pain when things get tough. It never got to the point where it derailed or where I've seen entrepreneurs really lose themselves because I like literally the moment information comes in, I've got sparring partners. Changes everything in the dynamic. And you're always finding solution. We're always deeply convinced we're going to win because it's kind of how you move forward. So it's not necessarily a shooting yourself kind of moment. It's more the kind of the level of intensity you get in, but I'm always part of a team. Bring on board the solo founders that you've already spoken with. That's another level.
So you get together and start really heavy-duty problem solving and keep going until there is a way of somehow rising back.
Absolutely. And we especially, and we're kind of, the mentality here is, okay, back in founders mode. Everyone goes back in and basically we don't leave the room before we find a solution.
Is there any moment of your professional career that you took a decision and now looking back you'd be like, oh, I wish I took a different decision at the time? Did it happen?
No, I guess you kind of romanticize the past, maybe. I'm sure there are many wrong decisions, but if you quickly transform them in learnings, it doesn't hurt for a long time. I don't think there's these painful decisions that still sit with me today that I would regret.
So because, as you said, maybe you're taking decisions together, so it feels like you're going somewhere as a group.
Yeah, but at Seedstars, and it was funny because it was something I brought in from the corporate world, which is when I started with my founders, any email I would send out, I would put like everyone in copy. Because in corporate, you're never accountable. So you make sure just everyone is in it, so it's never your fault. And that was the relationship to it. And then at some point, I remember Pierre write to me, you do know it's on you. Like, we don't need to get over it. Like, that's the way it goes, and it's fine. But this, like, mechanism of kind of hiding yourself in CC doesn't work. So I think in the contrary, I think I've learned a lot about accountability over the years. But yes, the fact you can share and that you're not alone in the pain, which is quite as surreal as the mega highs. It's really nice to be with people that have similar values and approach it the same way.
How old is Seedstars now?
So we're 13 years old.
13?
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah. And did you ever get during these 13 years any impostor syndrome?
Yes.
What did you do? How did you overcome it?
I still have it. So I think my mechanism now is, okay, I have it. I'm not going to hide it. And I have tools. So I have 2-3 people on speed dial. And every time something happens and the imposter syndrome kicks in, I call them. And it's kind of, Alisée, we've been through this. Yes, step back. Let's look at the options. Let's sleep it on it. So that's my mechanism of kind of calming it down. And then I had this great opportunity as I decided to also build a family. I realized me that was so get shit done, my operational value was a bit less because I just couldn't bring in the same input hours. So my only way to grow and continue to bring value to Seedstars was to kind of build my strategic acumen and be the one that really moves the needle on key decisions. And so I joined different boards of different organizations, public, private, for-profits, non-profits. And I think that helped a lot my imposter syndrome because I realized that, it's complicated and messy everywhere. So that's super reassuring. I realized there's so many people that should not be here. And so you try to reevaluate, okay, in one way, I'm happy with this syndrome because it just means you never are confident to be complacent. So it's always been my strength at the same time because I do the work and I want to be present. It's just the self-bashing, which is the part that I need to take away. But in itself, this kind of being always super prepared and just never letting go and trying to go the extra mile because you always think you're never good enough to be in that room. I feel like I'm okay with that. It's more that in doing that, there's a lot of negative energy on yourself, and that's the useless energy I think one needs to work on. But so seeing other people in that room, I don't know how they got there. So the self-bashing started to calm down.
You said the word it's complicated and messy.
Yes.
And for me, when you said these two words, I immediately thought of combination of entrepreneurship and motherhood. Yes. Because I am not at that level as you. I have only 2 children and I'm an entrepreneur, but this is how I feel all the time. I love it, but it's messy. Yes. And I wonder, how do you do that? Because if I'm right, you have 3 children, or maybe I'm missing something.
Yes.
I think that actually deserves an applause by itself, because Alisée is here with her 4th one in the belly. So congratulations. How do you juggle this, and how do you feel in it as a person, as Alisée?
I don't have an answer because it's been really hard. I learned kind of the level of just not the inequity when I became a mother. I didn't even have empathy for mothers before I became a mother, which is tough because it fundamentally means that you need the lived experience, and not everyone can have every lived experience to care about every person's journey. So it's difficult, but that was the first time where my partner, where we are equal, we're both entrepreneurs, we're on the same journey, we both asked to be parents, and I don't see kind of the same, like I had to be deconstructed to my core and he was amplified. He had just a new role that was, and that I was really angry for a long, long time. Really angry that I didn't get why we weren't getting the same experience. But I've said it already. I think I've passed through those experiences, and I'm at my 4th, so it seems like I'm liking it. But I've been past, so I do think it's built new muscles of resilience and new strengths. But it's really difficult because if I compare to that, like I constantly feel guilty, and I don't have a solution. I wish I did. I kind of understood you don't have it all. I understand you need there's a lot of sacrifice that goes in. I remember with the first child, I had quite close, I think, to postpartum, because you have to imagine, for me, it wasn't going to change my life to the point that we were still doing the Seedstars Summit. And I just put on a Pampers 1 week before my due date, and if it happens on stage, it happens on stage. That's how clueless I was about the whole experience. So of course, after giving birth, it's a whirlwind of changes. And I'm trying to think, how can I provide some insight or advice, but
maybe there isn't.
Yeah,
I don't feel
um,
I have any either. It's messy, it's beautiful, and we just kind of need to go with it. And we just can say to all the other women who are listening that they're not alone in it. Maybe that's what we
yeah, but
can
maybe I
say.
think it might not be your case because you want or you're interested in the entrepreneur route. So there is a certain level of dedication. I think, and I don't know if it's good, but I have given the advice of friends that really wanted to, anticipate, like, I'm going to go 80% at my work, or when I come back, I'm going to do 50. That's a very dangerous path because it's true. My first year with my first child, you sleep so little, hormonally, you're so different that it does feel like it's worth it to stop everything because you have this person and you are not you're still figuring it out. But then I see them 5 years later and the child does grow up and there are some things that are put in place that do make things easier. And it's really hard to find your place again, especially in more the corporate world where there's not the same approach to listening or getting you back in projects. And I've seen that hurt a lot of women, maybe less entrepreneurs because we build our schedule around. But maybe that's too judgmental and some need that. But I was very lucky. My partner, because I was willing to quit. So I was like, I've had it. And he was kind of and it's a huge sacrifice, just try to stick because it will get better. And it does, especially in today's world, exiting the market a year, 2 or more is very tough to get back in. It's very tough. So kind of hang in there, but I mean, it's not easy.
No, absolutely. And I remember we had a conversation at the time. I remember exactly what you said. You said you cannot have it all at the same time.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like pretty eye-opening because seeing you would be traveling and juggling all together, but you were acknowledging at the time.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, my biggest feminist decision was choosing the right partner. Huh? So...
You think so?
Yes. Because it's the person it's your biggest life partnership. And it defines kind of how far you can go. We never got married, so we decided to have all the really difficult conversations before we had a child. And I think in those difficult conversations, we understood, okay, like, this is the type of investment we're looking for if both of us are going to be invested in our work. And it's very tough when you go in the details of what that means for both parties. Or so you don't know before you have kids. But once we had a kid, we started identifying, okay, what type of parents do we want to be? And over time, it was okay for us that it wasn't a certain amount of hours, which is very personal and even can evolve over time. So we believed the community was going to take care of our children. So we built an infrastructure of people that would support us to also help us build, seed, and continue and work with the projects we had. That for me is game changer in your approach of what other projects you want to build and create, and of course your family project.
Yes, and talking about both your family project and your professional project, can you tell us a little bit more about the impact that you want to have? I think the fact that from the very beginning of your story, from the change you went from corporate career to entrepreneurship, you needed this meaning of your life kind of thing. So tell us a bit more about this and about the theory of change of Seedstars.
Yes. So in the nonprofit space, one way to track and build indicators on your impact is a framework that is used called the theory of change. But that's how good it is. It's a theory. Okay, so it's very difficult to be humble enough to attribute any impact to what you have done, your activities, and it's very long term. So a theory of change is that we're going to really break down all the activities, so our investment activities, our schools, the different projects that we do. We're going to build tangible indicators that are going to have clear outputs. So when I invest, I know I can increase X amount of revenues, which creates this amount of jobs, etc. And then it builds certain midterm, long-term outcomes to get to a final impact, which is for us socioeconomic growth of these economies. And that being a theory, we try to put it at the same level as our financial indicators. But you can't have it all. The tension of profit and purpose is constant. And we find ourselves kind of saying, okay, this year we need to have a certain profitability so that we can start doing this and so that we have the independence to focus on this impact. It's been very hard to kind of maintain the same level of pressure and prioritization all the time. But that's kind of how we've tried to identify the meaning. But to be honest, the bigger we are, the bigger we're looking at numbers and not people. And this in itself is troubling for me. And when I was young, I was very judgmental of what impact was and what good and bad. And the more I'm growing, I'm like, I meet these, because it's kind of like as if you were an entrepreneur, you were saying corporate world was bad. And then I meet these unbelievable people with corporate careers that are 100 times more dedicated to their local community. I mean, I don't know one person in my apartment. I've never been to the school. It's like what defines impact is so personal, and it's so important to have all types. And what I'm missing most now is kind of a day-to-day engagement with humans and having that more kind of social work. So it's evolved over time, but for sure, since I've been a mom, your decision is immediately reflected to what does this mean for my children? For sure, it's at least for me, it became automatic. And with my partner, we're like, deep down, we're like, gosh, I hope like in 20 years they say what we did was cool. We're kind of trying to like hope that they think we're cool.
Thank you for being honest in all levels. That's really, really important, and really appreciate it. So I have never been part of Seedstars, but from watching it from outside, to me, what feels like one of the impacts you guys definitely had is that you have built a community around the world of entrepreneurs, of people who make change, of innovators. And I think that's very impressive. So you are slightly hard on yourself, like all entrepreneurs, but to me, this is a huge impact. And I would like to ask you for the end of this podcast, what did you learn from this community? And what does having a community around you mean? What do you think in general about the concept of communities?
I really believe it defines you. So I'm convinced that I'm just, I don't know if it's the sum or the average or what, but of the people that surround me. So that's something that I've been very intentional for a while now. So I choose very wisely who I have very close to me, but every Seedstars could never have happened without the support of the most random people in the most random places, just feeling like this was a community worth it and that we're giving time, resources, whatever it was that they had available. It is only a story of that. My personal story is only about community that has supported me in different ways. Seedstars is the same. So for us, it's very much fundamental to how we see success and how we see growth. I'm convinced that it's a community that's going to bring up my children. I mean, it's really something that we believe is the human experience in itself of being together.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Alisée, for sharing your thoughts and vision. And to all of our listeners, keep dreaming big and scaling with purpose. Thank you very much for your time.